Hello, sir.
My man. Uh, First off, before you hit record, you did something in your office. Do you mind? Do you want to share what you did, or are you good?
I flatulated.
Yeah. And here's the problem: is that this office, the way it's set up, I think the vents are all shared at least, and
Uh-huh.
so if you could refrain from your natural tendency to be a stink bomb, then I'd really appreciate appreciate that. Second,
My son has started to model my inadequacies in that department of
yeah, congratulations to you for setting that example. You only have one person to blame.
yeah. Yeah. My wife
Uh,
has commented when I think it's really funny to fart really loud in front of my kids, and all she does is comment on, she takes our mission statement and it backfires on us when, we say that we're creating men that our sons want to become. She's like, are you modeling what your son should become in the future when you do that?
hey, it's not modeling what our son should become because that's projecting what we think should looks like. That's not what our mission statement says. Our mission statement says that we are the men our sons want to become. So
Yeah.
that is a different question, and he may want to become someone as proficient as dropping bombs as you are, but this is not what we had desired to talk about today. This was not even on the agenda,
It
the
wasn't.
docket, as it were.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks for bringing it up though. Thanks.
yeah, you're welcome. Related, we want to talk about marriage, but I will say, and I'll just give this really quickly as I am not a baseball dad, right? I played a long time ago, loved it. I try to have my kids avoid it because I find it to be an extremely boring sport. However, we've been playing a
Hey
lot of
dude,
catch lately, been
I played
outside.
college baseball, so
No, I understand.
what are you
And
saying about me?
boring, super boring. But I loved playing. Super fun sport to play. I cannot watch it. It's like
Fair,
watching golf.
fair.
Uh, but I was playing. We were playing in the front. I was throwing the ball high. Noah, dude, he'll take some like he's I don't know. Unfortunately, he may be somewhat natural at the sport. I don't know what I'm gonna do about that. But
Uncle Stewie
it,
will encourage him to
it,
play
that's good.
just so you can go watch him more because you like it so much.
Yeah, no, that's great. But Jake, he's maybe not as naturally inclined. So I
Yeah,
we were playing 500 and the ball, boom, right in his eyeball, and
nice.
took it straight. And I tell you, I don't respond really super well in those situations because I tend to be the guy that's like, oh, buddy, let's check on the baseball, make sure you didn't hurt it too bad,
Yeah.
which is not good. But anyhow, I just share that as a dad fail. Let's get into this topic of marriage. I went to church this past weekend. Pastor gave an amazing message. We won't be able to capture all the intricacies and the fine points here, but I wanted to do a quick overview of, he was talking about marriage and gave 5 points to help create a, a really good marriage. And so the first point was get help. And I really appreciated this. And what he specified, he's like, look, and the church this church specifically is a big believer in this because on their website, they have a list of vetted and recommended marriage counselors. So you can go through and pick. It's a resource they offer, which I thought was absolutely incredible. And that just shows how important it is to them. But they say get help, and marriage counseling is a sign of wisdom, not weakness. I really like that.
Yeah, that's good, man. I mean, we know some men inside the Storehouse Mastermind that have done just that, and by no means is it because they have troubles in their marriage, but they just want to work on their marriage. And one of the guys is a marriage coach, and have done some workshops, and it's just it's just like anything else. Like you got to sharpen your tool belt all the time, and if being a great husband or a great wife is important to you, then maybe you should consider doing that. If you get a coach, right? Like we get coaches in business, right? We get coaches for sports, and what does a coach do? A coach, just helps you grow in that area of your life. I think it's great, man.
Yeah, and just a point of clarification, Stu, we don't sharpen our tool belt. We sharpen our
Sharpen
tool
the
kit.
tools
Yeah,
in
we
the
sharpen the tools.
belt.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that we all on the
Yeah,
same page
thanks.
because it'd be a pretty difficult endeavor to sharpen your tool belt. I think, unless you have a metal tool belt, which that is its
Could be,
own.
yeah,
That's its own
possible.
a separate issue that we could discuss at a later time. Second point, date your spouse. It's interesting to me that when you start talking about these things with the regularity that we talk about it within the men's mastermind and all the efforts, we're trying to make in this arena, this becomes commonplace language, right? And these efforts are, they become, like I said, they just become relatively routine or commonplace that we talk about quite a bit. But dating your spouse is not always it's not always something that goes to the top of somebody's mind. And a lot of times this concept is foreign, right? Despite how much we pursued our wives, that this is something that kind of falls off, especially us men are guilty. We love pursuit. We love hunt. I mean, a lot of men love to hunt. Like I love to fish. I love the pursuing of the fish. I like the hiking and the creeping over the boulders and throwing a fly into a hole, and the fish comes out, and there's nothing like a fish coming out, grabbing it, and you catch it, and you bring it in, and then you just throw it back and you go for it again, right? Like it's just the passion of the pursuit is something we love. Oftentimes we get it, whatever it is, we stop. We don't continue to pursue. I'm not trying to catch that same fish when I'm in the river. I'm going for the next fish. I want a bigger fish, and I want a different, and I'm going to go to this other river, and you know what I mean? And so in our marriage, we get this amazing person that we pursued, and then we just kind of fall into like the humdrum of quite frankly of a marriage if we're not putting the effort to continue to pursue it. So point number 2, date your spouse.
Yeah, man. I mean, what can happen real fast in a marriage is you just kind of become roommates, with a common goal of raising kids. And I fell into that trap. My wife and I fell into the trap, and we're starting to go on dates again. It's been amazing. And one challenge further than just deciding to date your wife is um, have meaningful conversations beyond just your kids or like what's on the calendar or the plan ahead or whatever, similar to like meaningful conversations in other relationships. Like be intentional about the relationships that you're the conversations that you're having, or like schedule something that's like super fun, right? Like when's the last time you had like belly laughing fun with your spouse? And we did another episode on that, the real talk about having fun with your spouse. But go schedule something fun and have like laugh and have fun and have meaningful conversations. No, just go out to dinner and just talk about what's going on with your kids, right?
Yeah, man, love it. Point number 3, have great sex. And when he talked about this, he was saying, there are so many elements to having a fulfilling marriage, especially in this realm of sex. And he talks about the biggest part is communication, right? Talking about things so that, because a lot of times, especially around this thing that we see as a blessing from God, that it becomes uh, a fight instead of a blessing. It's something we fight about instead of something that we are blessed by and enjoy. And so he talks about, the false narratives that are created when we don't talk about sex. We'll tell ourselves, if you get quote unquote rejected in your mind, she's not attracted to me. Something is wrong with our marriage. There's resentment. There's all these things, but maybe it's something completely different. Most likely it's something completely different. And so just communicating, getting past that area of shame or whatever's keeping you from having the conversation, and actually having a real conversation with your spouse about, what is going on, and talking through these things will oftentimes kill a lot of those false narratives. And there's one other point is to constantly remind ourselves that we entered a marriage to serve and not to be served. And that changes the perspective of everything, to include sex, in our marriage. And it can really enrich and bless it, because we're not constantly seeking our own personal fulfillment and selfish ambitions through our marriage. We're actually in this marriage to serve somebody else.
Yeah, man, that's good. I remember one of the conversations we had again inside the Storehouse Mastermind. There's so many amazing conversations, but one of the men, we were on the subject of intimacy, and he said that intimacy doesn't start, at 9 p.m. at night when, like, as the man, you're ready to have sex. Like, intimacy starts actually maybe that morning, right? Like, where you serve your wife and tell her how much you love her, and maybe get her a coffee and hold her hand, and do all these other things that are serving your wife, serving your spouse, and not just have this expectation that you're going to get some that night, right? And so that's been kind of a real mindset shift for me, is just how do you show up, and serve your spouse, and again, having that, having those deep, meaningful conversations. And another thing that my wife and I did was the Gary Keller One Thing couples retreat. There's a whole list of questions, and there's a whole section on this topic, and having those conversations about, like, what the woman needs, what the man needs, and how often and where and when, and what's good, what's not, like all those conversations. And it could be uncomfortable, but like, if it's uncomfortable for the one person that you're sharing life with every single day, maybe you need to think about that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, man. I think it's a great point. This is the person that we should absolutely be able to communicate with, and so I think that's
100%.
a big element of this. All right, fourth point: pursue your God. And this was a great point. Again, this is in the context of, this was a sermon, right? And so for the message we were receiving, this is in the context of a Christian faith and being a Christian man, and but it's applicable in that, what it means. And the example he gave is, he said the right person, quote unquote, the right person will never, doesn't really exist, and they will never truly complete you. And he gave the Jerry Maguire. He said, Jerry Maguire lied to us. He said, when those elevator doors open or whatever the scene was, he said, "You complete me." And she said, "You had me at hello," or whatever, right? He said it's such a garbage line, because if you're relying on your spouse to complete you, or you're relying on any other person to complete you, what does that really mean? Like, they were not created to complete you. That they're not supposed to complete you. There's only, and for me, only Jesus completes me, right? There's only God can be the person, can be the being that can complete my life. Because if you're putting that kind of expectation on your spouse, that is a very, very unfair thing to expect, that your spouse or another human being can complete you. That is a very, very high bar, and it's impossible. And so there's, when you talk about the fruits of the Spirit, well, God gives the fruits of the Spirit, not your wife. When the love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, self-control, all those things, the fruits that we believe in, your wife can't give you that. Your spouse can't give you that. That is a gift from God in that relationship. And so, spending time, there's also a big element. Spending time with God makes me a better husband, right? Spending time, quiet time, and getting myself right, and doing the things that building that relationship will also make me a better man, which in turn makes me a better husband.
Yeah, dude. One of the things that our the worship leader at my church said, one of the times we were, they were singing songs and they kind of dismissed the church. She said, "Go out this week and take action with your eyes set on eternity." And if you think about that, and the way you show up every single day, if you show up with your eyes set on eternity, and the actions that you take, um, you know, you you live for eternity. Like, you have an eternal life in heaven if you take your actions there first, knowing that your actions may impact what that looks like, right? Go there first and have your eyes set on attorney. The next, in line is your spouse, right? But she can't determine eternity for you. There's only one person that can do that, and that's God.
Yeah, man. It's good. It's good. All right. Fifth point, just don't quit. And this was I love this. And he talks about, from the biblical perspective, the Bible talks about love always perseveres. Love always perseveres. And you're remembering we all have issues, man. None of us are perfect. And so we have to choose. We literally have to choose not to quit. And we should also harken back to the words that we said, till death do us part, right? If you didn't take that seriously in your vows, then it's not, or if you don't consider a vow to be something serious, then I think you have some digging to do and some self-reflection, contemplation to do, because these are the things that we said. We said this was important. And there's also this element, also the title of a great book, but love is a choice. Love is not this feeling. I mean, anybody who's been married for any amount of time, and if you've never been married, I hate to spoil this for you, but you go through this phase and you have this person, you're pursuing them, you love them, here's flowers and all this romance and all this stuff, and then you get married, and the way that they used to sip their tea with a slurp was so adorable, and the crunch of the apple that they used to chew on, it was just such a precious thing. 2 years into marriage, that stuff drives you bonkers. It drives you nuts. Like, do you have to drink your tea so loud? Like, do you really have to crunch an apple like that? Like, is there not a way to eat that more quietly? But it's
Yeah.
true, right? It's true. Like, these are the things we're getting in these long commitments, and the feelings part of them come and go. It's like a wave, right? And they come and they go, but you can choose to love each other forever. You can choose to show up and to show up in love, because that's what you have to do, and you just have to not quit. And all these things can help you get there too, right? The getting help, the dating your spouse, the having great sex, the pursuing your God. These things can help you to make that choice. Because if you're honest with yourself, even in friendships like ours, man, we love each other, super deep relationship. Like, we annoy each other, man. Like, we could make a
A lot.
choice.
A
Yes, you
lot.
do annoy me a lot. And we could make a choice to be like, it's just easier just to not invest. It is easier. Like, I will tell you, it is easier to not enter a relationship with your wife. It is easier to not be vulnerable and bring yourself to your relationship with your friends. It is easier to not do those things. But life is way less rich. And quite frankly, we weren't created to not have these relationships. And so I think it's, just don't quit is something we can get behind.
Yeah, man. I was doing some research for a presentation that we're working on, and I saw this statistic that said that 50% of first marriages in America right now end in divorce. And I think it was like 68% or something like that of second marriages in divorce. And then it just continues to go up from there, like 78, 85. And as we're talking through this, I bet you that if one of the two or both would have just had that mindset of just don't quit, right? Just when it gets hard, just don't quit. I bet you that number, that 50% number, would be a lot lower.
Oh yeah, no doubt, dude. And it's crazy because those percentages go up because your expectation continues to be unmet, and
Yeah.
the negative feelings, the whatever, depression, the sadness, the whatever, the negative emotions that got you to that place, they just magnify, because you're like, well, the first one didn't work. The second one, this person's not meeting my needs either. They don't complete me. And so then you're even more so in
Yeah.
that state. So that's the numbers continue to go up because your expectations are so false, they're so wrong, your focus is in the wrong place, that it is inevitable that it is not going to work unless you take responsibility to change yourself and
Mm.
your expectations and what you're seeking, the reason you're getting into these marriages. Unless you do that, you will continue to be a statistic, and that statistic will continue to climb as you, you know, continue to change partners.
Good stuff, man. Motivates
Hey,
me
buddy.
to get after it, man. Just be an awesome husband, right? Be an awesome spouse.
That's right. And this applies to so many other areas, right? I mean, it's you
Yeah,
know, but it starts with again, this is a message of hope, because what I love about it's very action driven. Get help. Well, you can get help. You can do that. You can hire
totally.
somebody, you can have a conversation. You can date your spouse. That's a very easy thing. You can have great sex. A little bit more difficult. There's got to be probably two to tango in there. But again, you can impact that. Pursue your God. Obviously, it's 100% on you, and then don't quit. That's a choice you make, right? That is a choice you make, and that's what's so encouraging about this message for me. And I love those 5 points, man. You do those
Yeah.
5 things, dude. You do any one of those five starting today,
Let, let me
you're gonna be making a significant
let me
change.
add something else to it. Maybe a six step is surround yourself with other people that have these same goals and the same mindset, and that
Dude,
can have these conversations, right?
powerful, right? You tell a group of dudes like our guys, hey, I'm gonna date my spouse. Like, you better expect that they're
Yeah,
gonna be like, how'd the date go? And then you got to come back and be like, yeah, it didn't go. Okay,
yeah,
cool. When is the date? I will text you on the day that you tell me that your date is,
yeah.
and see if you guys are going on a date. I'll call your wife and make sure that this is happening. So
Right.
yeah, dude, I love it. I love it.
Good stuff,
All right,
man.
boy.
Go be better. Be different.
Be different, be better, be kinetic.
See ya.
Peace.